Hey guys, welcome back to the Paladins Alliance. Another week of EPL has been done and dusted, and as Group C continues on, I wanted to go back and look at a specific player in Group B. Obviously, there were a lot of great little storylines picking up, but Maus continues to develop, and we finally had a large sample size for this roster to kind of see and take note as to which of these players are floundering, which of them are flourishing, and which one of these are might not be necessarily the most talked about players, but I definitely want to kind of analyze them as best as possible. Obviously, I think Yimfat has improved a lot, at least as far as the EPL group is concerned, as compared to how he was in Cologne. And I think that Frozen is continuing to show his just star rifle power that he has on this roster. But I think one of the players that I was just most confused about is Torzsi, because as you can see through this rating, he was the second highest rated, or second or third highest rated player for Maus as a whole. But his rating and his ADR and his KPR definitely suggests to me that there might be more than meets the eye to Torzsi's performance throughout this EPL group. As you can see, 66.9%, 66.9 ADR is not necessarily going to be a glaring, exciting prospect when it comes to an Opper, especially somebody like Torzsi who's being touted as the most underappreciated tier 1 Opper right now, which I don't necessarily agree with. And you'll see as the video goes on, I'm not going to be the person that tries to tear a person down in terms of how they're playing, but I do just want to set everybody's expectations straight as to what Torzsi's providing in the server, especially when you look at the ADR at 66.9 and then KPR at 0.71. Obviously, I can give you some comparisons if you want to kind of showcase how different it is when you look at the KPR and the ADR. ADR for, of course, the number one player in the world is Zywu at 87.3 and 0.84. I could pull up even lesser players in the space as well. You look at Monesi. Monesi comes out at 78.7 ADR, still on the lower side, but the KPR is still high. And then, let's see, maybe you can throw Jame in there for fun. Jame also loves a good bit of saving, and even in ADR with somebody that saves a lot more and relies on the AWP a little bit more, still has a higher ADR and KPR in this conversation. So Torzsi overall, it doesn't necessarily scream to me that this guy is necessarily having the most amount of impact, even with the rating that he has. And I think it comes down to just the impact rating that he's getting, as well as the survivability that he's getting throughout a lot of these rounds, because he's last in on both sides of the map. So I think that that is a huge proponent to why his rating might get propped up a little bit. And as you can see, he's also a player that has to throw a lot of flashbangs if he is last in, and I don't even think that that's as successful as it is. You look at where he lies on the flash rating, quite low here. If I have to keep scrolling. The first player that I see from Maus is Frozen here on the flash rating, and then I have siuhy, and then I have Torzsi. He's the third highest player in terms of flash rating on Maus, and that is with him being the last player out on the bomb site on a regular basis. So that is already very worrisome. So is he baiting? Is he providing usage in the terms of utility? We'll have to wait and see and actually look at the demos to kind of continue to write that story. And then you look at the opening kills as well. He is the highest rated player in terms of opening kills, but he's attempting it far less than, you know, the other players on this roster. 19% overall, but the success rate is a 74%. And we'll get into the conversation that I have about Torzsi and where I think that he can definitely improve upon when you have success percentages like this and the attempt rating quite lower, all things considered. And you keep scrolling and you look at the other players that are opening for Maus. 29.8% for Xerxes, 45.8% conversion, and it's not high, but he is. I have to say that Xerxes is creating a lot of space for Maus as a whole, and he's a huge proponent as to why Maus's T sides look so damn good. And then the next player that you could see after that, you have to scroll quite a bit. But you'll eventually find Yimfat here, 15.7% at a 47.4% success rate. And I believe Frozen is somewhere nearby as well. Okay. Yeah, there he is. Frozen right here at a 12%, 62.1% rating. So I think a lot of these players do enjoy going for opening picks. But as far as I'm concerned, I think this is a little bit misleading, especially with the actual percent attempt rate that he's going for. A lot of this comes from that CT side more often than those T side opening percentages. So there are a lot of misleading statistics here that I think that is propping up how Torzsi actually is in comparison to what he is touted up to be. So I actually want to get into the demos and start to dissect the kind of eye test that this guy has, as well as the positioning that he shows as an opper in today's game, and whether or not it actually holds up. I will say, in terms of CT-sided aggression, Torzsi, more often than not, when he does decide to go for these opening picks, it works out in his favor pretty well. I think the problem is just the frequency of it, and sometimes he tries to push the issue too much, but this round in specific is just one of those really good situations where he does go for the top crane peak, gets the instant kill onto, I believe that's Insani. He is just muted here. But regardless of this, as soon as they've actually taken a little bit of ramp control, Torzsi decides to re-aggress later on in the round. And eventually, I mean, siuhy does get another kill as well onto Breno. And as soon as that happens, Torzsi actually slides all the way out and holds onto this part of the map for the entire round. He doesn't get a single kill, but this allows for 3 to 4 players to be on that B bomb site, and there's actually no way for them to get into that upper bomb site just because of Torzsi having all of this ramp control, that he can just hold it all on his own, and as soon as that hit comes in, yeah, they just kind of get mauled there. So I really do like some of that aggression and re-aggression that he did on ramp, but sometimes the issue was pushed a little bit, as I'll show in the next couple of rounds here. So this time I'm gonna just kind of have two or three rounds just sprinkled in together to show you some of where the CT side aggression just feels like it's being forced and it doesn't actually net them anything positive. Here he decides to jump all the way down into the bottom of B stairs with no real pressure, and the flash also misses. I think he gets blinded by an MIBR flash as well. And I just don't necessarily recommend this ever as an opper. Just because, I mean, there is no real support that you can provide to your player above you. And I also think that, yeah, one flash can just ruin your whole day. It's just a matter of positioning at that point. And I think that this was just a real oversight. We'll keep going. I'm not going to have just a dry cut here. We'll just keep looking at some of the more aggressive plays that he continues to try. This time around, he buys an MP9. Actually, no, it's not this round. We'll go to the next one. So in the following, he's going to try another aggressive play here. He'll throw that ramp smoke as usual. And eventually, he will peek side hall here. And at this point, right, you're trying to swing side hall, and you have to hope that you have some control on the other side of things so you can get traded. You have siuhy here, still not completely clearing out ramp, and you have, I believe, Frozen, yeah, alongside him on the other side of crane as well. So Torzsi is going to try to go for an aggressive maneuver here, try to fight, and I don't think he necessarily has enough information from his teammates in siuhy from the front of crane, and then Frozen, who has also left the scene. So at this point, Torzsi should not be here. This is the point where he just gets absolutely overrun, and I don't necessarily think this is his fault. I think this is just an oversight in the setup itself by not having true ramp control, that they kind of get misinformed, and Torzsi cannot hit the shot and immediately gets punished because of it. We'll give another round here, just with the kind of aggression that he's been trying to show throughout this game. He gets the AWP again. I don't necessarily know. Yeah, they do find a way to convert it after all is being said and done, because you do have just very, very smart rotators in terms of Frozen and in terms of siuhy eventually as well. Yimfat also had some key impact here for this team. But yeah, you're on a full eco here, and you try to fight ahead of this utility, and again you just get overwhelmed. Your site mate has already gone down. Fighting ahead of the utility at this point is just a risk, and it doesn't necessarily make sense. So it just feels like he's trying to make a play, but the play doesn't necessarily need to be made at that point. You could just play a 4v3, and you know they only can recover one one rifle, and then you try to play with your superior utility after the bomb goes down. But yeah, these are just three situations here where I feel like Torzsi tries to push the issue a little too much. Perhaps some of it's an oversight in terms of the CT setup to begin with, but I do feel like a little uncomfortable with the decision that Torzsi made in these couple of rounds. MIBR route a huge T-sided comeback here, but by taking, I believe, yeah, 5 rounds in a row, as Mao's kind of struggled to answer back. And I think a big part of it was just the issues that Torzsi was having with those opening picks. But this is a round where he's much more measured. He doesn't actually try to go for A ramp control and tries to play a little bit more passive with his player in side hall and his player in ramp, especially after Frozen goes down initially. So he just holds on to this crane angle and doesn't overplay his hand too much. Nails the first shot, has a player to back him up in terms of the trade and insertion. And as soon as that happens, he doesn't try to extend the issue. He doesn't try to play ahead of it. He doesn't try to get cheeky around the smoke. He doesn't try to jump up on headshot. He knows that he has a player that's found his way in a quick flank position in siuhy that at this point, he can just clean up the rest of the round. So Torzsi never faces, and siuhy locks in all 3 of those kills. So really well played in terms of the aggression, and in terms of how he was able to bounce back. I really admire the adaptability. This is something that he would learn a lot of the times in these CT-sided halves, but sometimes it would feel like it was a little bit too late. But in this situation, he does find a way to claw another round back in for Mouse. So in terms of Vertigo, on the rest of Vertigo, on his T side, he doesn't necessarily have too much impact. That's why I don't really have too many rounds to pick out. A lot of it was just zoning and holding ramp control, but never really going for anything aggressive to open the round up. He kind of relied a lot more on players like Frozen and Insertion to open things up, and then he would try to slide into post plants, but some of the times he wouldn't even get to the post plant positions. So overall, Vertigo was kind of okay in terms of Torzsi's performance against MIBR, but I definitely think that on Inferno it kind of struggled a little bit more, and a lot of it is covered up by the fact that on these T sides, Frozen and Xertion do so much work for this team, and then you also add in the added impact that siuhy and Yimfat are slowly adding on that CT side, and there's a lot of things that Maus do correctly on that map that just do really cover up what Torzsi adds, which is not a lot. In terms of the rotations, he's not too mobile on the AWP on that CT side. A lot of the times he does make incorrect reads, and on those T sides, he is last in, and 90% of the time the side is already taken through the initial hit from players like Frozen and Xertion, that there is no necessarily need for him to kind of open things up on the T side. But the problem is that when you do get into these post plants, when there are 3v4 situations on the B or A bomb site, or just disadvantageous positions, even advantageous positions, sometimes he just can't hit those shots, and the eye test doesn't necessarily check out in that sense when he has pressure against him. And you'll see as this video progresses how he looks like in pressure-filled scenarios, and how he just can't hang when something is uncomfortable for him in a specific situation. But you will see here in this round on Mirage, when he does go for some opening T side plays, it does actually net some key openings. So Torzsi goes for one to punish the B aggression, punishes that second AWP from Breno, and then moves all the way back to that A bomb site to try to get some ramp control. He smokes off mid again, but here you'll just see him fight, and they try to double swing him, and he still manages to get another. So after he does get that second, that's when the rest of the Mouse players kind of recongregate and just hit through a split. Frozen gets another one in Palace, and they eventually just get onto this free A bomb site. But credit to Torzsi for being mobile in this situation and actually showing impact on both sides of the map. So this was just a very key round that I enjoyed from him in particular. So you would have these flashes of plays from him throughout these series, but it would just definitely be flashes. It wouldn't be consistency. I do think there were a lot of times throughout all these series that I watched where Torzsi decides to save the AWP even on the T side. And with how risky those plays are, you'd hope that he'd bring a lot of fire into the next following rounds. But a lot of the times it wouldn't happen. This case, you can see the value that he brings with that AWP. Again, a flash of brilliance, but not necessarily something that I see on a regular basis from him. But he takes this early duel in a CT, wins that out, gets so much space to his T side to get all these openings. Doesn't overextend on the stairs play, but gets a tag off on jungle. I like the proactivity, understanding that he only has an AWP to play with. The rest are all on pistols. Xertion's picked up an A1S, sure, but they don't have armor to back it up. So eventually they do try to retake here, MIBR, but I do like the punishment of the cross here, and then making sure to lock this in with siuhy to just spam that smoke and confirm a 7th round for Mouse. But I do like the proactivity from him here, and he just definitely toes the line with valuing his life by bounding back in a ramp and making sure that he doesn't overextend himself in any situation, because he is that valuable weapon in that round. So as far as the rest of the MIBR series is concerned, they didn't necessarily come out on top. And I didn't necessarily see enough impact from Torzsi to really net too many rounds to record there. And I honestly can just move through the rest of the series because they kind of tread the similar ground, and it's very difficult to kind of chalk up a bunch of rounds, especially when he's doing very similar things across multiple series. I just want to pick out the most important ones to kind of tell where my opinion is at on this player, and kind of give you a little bit more tools to decide as to what you guys think as well. Against Evil Geniuses, granted it is against Evil Geniuses, but it was a very close series. It was a 2-0 for them, but I think Torzsi probably had his best series there on Ancient, towing the line very well between aggression and passive play, and it looked like he had a little bit more idea of his bearings and would very much guarantee a single kill, especially on that offense, and would shut down a lot of Junior's attempts at opening picks. So I really like that about him. And on Inferno, I think it was much of the same, where he struggles to provide post-plant impact, and then on the CT side, when he is put into pressure scenarios, he can actually convert and gets guaranteed only one, but can't really go much beyond that. Multi-kill potential is very low, especially on a map like that, which is very concerning, that your side anchors have to put in a lot more work when your AWP cannot be as mobile. But we'll get into the series against Heroic. I think that he had some shining lights here, round number 12 in specific, where he put in a lot of work in terms of aggression, and it netted some pretty positive frags overall. So this is one of the first rounds, actually, round 12, where he decides to go for some aggressive outside control. He doesn't necessarily go for any aggressive inner control in lobby, or even tries to push the issue on ramp. This is one of those first rounds where he pushes outside, does go head to head with Cadian, comes out on top, and survives for quite a bit of time to actually net another kill. Frozen decides to chime in outside, Xerxin comes in as well, and he just holds this line for a long time, and I believe he will eventually reaggress here and closes out the round on the shush. So I do like the fact that he decides to finally go in for a play like this, but it is very rare that he does make this play, as you can see by the statistic, that he goes for only 19% of opening attempts, but comes out 75-76% of the time successful. In terms of the rest of the series, I don't necessarily know if there was enough for me to really pick and nitpick out for Torzsi, especially in that Heroic series. And then when they played MIBR again the second time to qualify for playoffs, MIBR had quickly ran out of steam after that first matchup. They replayed the same maps, and we got a lot of the same styles out from Torzsi, especially where he had these very slow T-sided rounds where he wasn't getting too much impact on maps like Vertigo and Inferno. And the CT side, he did necessarily have a little bit more impact. I definitely think on Inferno he stepped up big time. Retake started being a little bit more involved and showing a little bit more pace in how he was trying to move around the map. But I think the biggest parts of what I have the issue with him still pertained throughout all of these series that I watched at EPL. And that is that I think on the T side, he doesn't have enough proactivity and doesn't provide enough support, even in the utility, to kind of allow for some of these players to have a way back into the bomb site, to entry into these bomb sites. I think it's raw mechanics from players like Xerxin, from players like Frozen, to just crack open these bomb sites and showcase that they have a very good T-side because of that. I also think that siuhy has been doing really great in the mid to late round calling and having some fantastic reads when the timer is running low, and that is helping them a lot. When we get into those post-plant scenarios where we're seeing in-meta AWPs thrive, that's where I see Torzsi actually fall apart. And when he pressured in a lot of these scenarios on that T side, it gets really bad. Even on when you switch over to that defense, he has very similar issues where he can't necessarily hold on for 1 or 2 kills. 90% of the time, it's max 1 kill and he falls apart. And that's my issue that I have with him. It feels like in every aspect of an Opper's game, he's just mediocre. And there's no real way for me to say that he's at his peak. And a lot of the times his rating is inflated because of that, just because he is surviving a lot of the times, because he's last in, because he's going to be retaking on these bomb sites. And if not, if the retakes don't happen, he's saving, right? So he's surviving. And I think that all of this has just basically propped up his AWP rating, or his just player rating in general. And then you look at the rifles that he provides, the rifling isn't even that great either. So overall, I'm very low on Torzsi as a whole, regardless of the rating that he has. And even though it matches up to some of the best ratings in Tier 1 CS right now, I think it's a little deceptive. And that's why for my performance review here at EPL, I'm going to go at like about a 6 out of 10 here. I don't necessarily know if I see the longevity from Torzsi. I don't see necessarily a Torzsi that was far better than the one with Dexter. Sure, I think positioning wise, he was definitely underutilized under Dexter. Now, even if he's in those proper positions, I don't think that he's actually hitting the shots. And the eye test to me is very upsetting. And I just don't necessarily think he passes that test. And for that reason, I'm going to give him quite a lower score than people might expect based off of the rating that he had and the results that Mouse had as well. So that's going to do it for this video. I didn't have as many rounds to pick out. I think this is definitely a more like holistic view of Torzsi rather than specific rounds outright, because I think a lot of those T-sided rounds come down to just missed shots and a lot of positioning errors that I don't think I can necessarily translate into just round after round to show you. We'd have to go through a ton of maps just raw to really point those details out. But I hope you guys understand where I'm getting at here. And if you do actually disagree with me here, go down in the comments. Let me know what you think about Torzsi, what you think that I missed out on, maybe stats that I missed out on, or ideas about Torzsi that I might have misunderstood. But this is kind of where I lie on him, and I hope that Mouse can continue their good run of form, because I think they've got a great core about them. Xerxin is making so much space for this team. Siuhy is putting in so much work in those mid to late rounds and fragging as well. Of course, Frozen is just such a Swiss Army knife for this squad on both halves of the map. And I think Yimfat just needs time. I think Yimfat showed that he has the capabilities of performing at the highest level. You just need to give him a little bit more space and a little bit more nurturing to kind of eclipse that of maybe JDC's roles in rosters previous. But I think Torzsi is that gaping hole, and as for right now, he's not necessarily stood up to the task just yet. I'd love to be proven wrong, but we'll just have to wait and find out. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to leave a like, leave a comment again if you disagree or agree. Just let me know what you think. And we'll catch you for the next one. I think I don't necessarily know what I'm going to do for Group C, just because this group has been pretty straightforward, all things considered. But we might maybe look at a Na'Vi player, because that is definitely a controversial team nonetheless. So definitely stay tuned to Paladin's Alliance channel, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.